Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
Good morning, I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal. Today I'm talking with Barnstable County Sheriff Jim Cummings, the man in charge of the Barnstable County Correctional Facility, which was recently recognized by the Federal Justice Department for the facility's efforts to rehabilitate addicts. Good morning, Sheriff. Thanks for joining me today.
Morning, Rob. Great to be here.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the accolades from the Justice Department awarded to the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program. But I wanted to get a sense of the jail itself before we move on to that, if that's okay.
Sure.
Can you give me an overview? How many inmates you have at any given time, what the status of those prisoners is? Are they awaiting trial? Are they in transit generally? Or
Sure. We have actually two different entities within the building. One is the jail, where we house people who are being held on bail or without bail for upcoming trials. And then the other side of the house is the House of Correction, where we have people who are sentenced for a time period of less than 2.5 years. If they get a higher sentence, 3 years or more, they go to a state facility. And then within that, there's 12 different housing units. They're kind of like little individual, I hate to use the word prisons, but that's what they are, little individual prisons. And, we kind of use a carrot and a stick. You work your way up to the better housing unit. It might have a little bit of rug on the floor. It might have a coffee machine. It might have a refrigerator, things like that. And those are usually the people who are working in the community. And just before that, before you can work in the community, you have to be involved in some of our programming. And, for the most part, with 80% of the folks who are coming into the correctional facility having some issue with drugs or alcohol, the programming is very important to us. And,
so that's right. 8 out of 10 people coming through there have some sort of an issue, whether it's alcohol, cocaine, heroin, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
So tell me what happens when a person with a drug problem comes in, or a drug offender. Obviously, you have to deal with physical symptoms of withdrawal. Are those folks housed in a special unit, or how does that work?
Well, there's actually a medical unit within the correctional facility. So if someone is detoxing, we'll watch them in the medical unit. And and on occasion it's so bad that we actually have to transport them to a hospital, and they'll actually finish detoxing in the hospital. And once they get through that phase, and they are when they're sentenced, we have an indoctrination unit, and they're usually there for about 30 days, and we have trained staff that looks at their criminal history, looks at their educational level, looks at those substance abuse issues or other issues, their sentences. They read the police reports to kind of get a feel on what the outlying problems are with this individual. Does he have issues with anger management, or is it a substance abuse issue that has caused him to end up in a correctional facility? And based on that, the classification staff determines where they're going to be housed and what programming they should be involved with. Now, we have some inmates who get there and they don't want any help. They don't want anything to do with any of our programming. We have a housing unit for them, too, and you pretty much just sit there and, stay in your cell, or for a while every day you're out of your cell. But, we don't waste our time on them. The ones that want the help, we'll give them the help they need. And it's our ASAT program, which you mentioned, which we just got national recognition for, is a very intense program. It's continual counseling. It's kind of a discipline-based volunteer program. You have to volunteer for it, and when you're in there, you have to follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, there's different sanctions that might be minor, like the first offense, you have to wear a red hat, just so everybody knows you didn't do the right thing. But if it gets to a point where you're disrupting the program, then you're thrown out of the program.
I wanted to. That's a good move into this subject. So it's called the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program, and what exactly is that? Now, is that something that you offer to anyone with a drug problem, or do they have to be selected out of a certain prison population?
No, anyone who's willing to. It's a volunteer program, so if they volunteer, we'll get them in the program depending on their sentence. I mean, if it's a 6-month program, so if you're sent to us for 30 days, there's not much we can do for you. They volunteer for it. It's a federal program. ASAT is actually federal verbiage, and it's partially operated by federal grant money, which resulted in us, and it was really quite significant. I mean, it was a nationwide search by the Department of Justice, who are actually involved with the RSAT program, and they narrowed it down to 15 correctional facilities across the country, and 6 were chosen out of that, and ours was one of them. So, it was certainly quite a recognition, and we're very happy with it. And actually, we've shown over the years that people who complete the RSAT program, their chance of recidivism is about 20%. In other words, 20% of the people who finish that program will probably come back to us. The national average is about 62%.
Wait, of prisoners who don't participate in this sort of program.
Right.
So when you say it's partially paid for with federal money, do you know how much it costs for each individual prisoner to be treated, or is it subjective based on that prisoner's particular needs?
Yeah, no, it would be the same for each one in the RSAT program, but I've never broke it down, for an individual. And actually, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, programs that work tend to be the ones that get cut. So
right.
we've been cut year after year after year. But the program is so successful, we do everything we can to certainly keep it up and running.
So you say that 8 out of 10 people come to you with a substance abuse problem. What percentage, ballpark, and I know you also said that if they're not there for at least 6 months, then they're not eligible. But what percentage of the eligible prisoners actually participate?
It's probably around 70% that we're able to get through the program. Yep.
Who came up with the criteria for the program? Was that federal agencies along with local counselors or doctors? Or
Yep. The feds kind of set the parameters, and then for a while we used an outside treatment facility, AdCare, it was called, to do that. And now we're basically doing it on our own. We have our own human service staff that runs the program, and AdCare comes in every once in a while to evaluate it and give us some management advice relative to the program, and it's been a great relationship, and obviously very successful as well.
Let's go back to the designation as a mentoring host site for the substance abuse rehab efforts. What were some of the factors cited by the Justice Department when they gave you this award or this recognition?
Just the success that we've shown in the past, as well as the fact that it's one of the few discipline-based, and when I say discipline-based, I'm kind of probably the best way for someone to understand it is it's kind of run like a boot camp. I mean, they're special uniforms. They're in their own housing unit. They live together. It's kind of becomes a therapeutic community, if you will. Mm-hmm. They march. It kind of discipline is a strong part of it, and we're one of the few places in the country that still use that discipline-based boot camp style, and it's been very successful for us. So I think that's the one thing that kind of made us different from everyone else across the country, and got us this recognition. And
so let's say someone's in there, someone's a guest of your facility for 2 years, and they go through this program and they're through in 6 months. Then where do they go? Do they stay in that particular unit, or do they go back into the general population? Or
no, yeah, from there, when they finish that program, that would make them eligible for some of our educational programs that we have inside the facility. It would make them eligible for our, depending on their crime, for our work release program, as well as our community service program. So it gives them an opportunity to become more active, and if they get into the community service program or the work release program, they actually get an opportunity to leave the facility during the day and go out in the community and work, and that's certainly something that they all strive for, because they certainly don't want to spend every day sitting in there.
Sure. So that's really the incentive, is for greater freedom. They get to leave the jail. They maybe get some incentive with regard to, you say, the nicer housing and things of that nature. And I did read your press release the other day where you were talking about how the prisoners enjoy the meals that they get served when they're off in the doing the work for governmental agencies or whatever. I can imagine that would be a nice treat.
It's amazing what a McDonald's or a submarine sandwich would do when you're used to jail food.
Hey, so I'm free, and it does
exactly.
a lot for me.
Exactly.
So now that you've been designated a mentoring site, what does that mean for you? Are people going to come and observe what you're doing here, or do you go to other jails and kind of give lectures?
Yeah, the next phase is that other facilities across the country will have the opportunity to come and spend time with us, observe how we operate our program. Along with that, we'll also be doing webinars that will be seen across the country. Our staff will explain it using the webinar system, And as well as that, our folks will go to other facilities that were selected, too, to take a look at how they're doing things and see if we can learn maybe something that would help us improve our program even more.
And now, once the inmates that have successfully completed the program, okay, they're released from jail, and then obviously that's where the problem can arise. They're back out in the population. There are drugs available, things of that nature. Is there any sort of follow-up care that's available?
Yes, actually, this overall program that we have relative to reentry in the RSAT program is part of that, along with our Vivitrol program and some of the educational programs we have. What we're trying to do now is, it was pretty easy to figure out that if we keep taking people who are sent to jail, don't do anything for them while they're in jail, and then send them right back to where they came from, we're going to see them again. So now our whole goal is to get people, and when they come to jail, give them a foundation by helping them with their substance abuse issues, whether it be alcohol or drugs, or whether it's anger, decision making, whatever it might be, mental health issues. We have a fairly good-sized population of folks with mental health issues. Give them the foundation to address those issues, and then when they leave the facility, have that follow-up. Our effort right now, which isn't something that's very easy here on Cape Cod, is when they leave jail, we want them to have a job, a place to live, health insurance, and the necessary program for their counseling for whatever their issue might be. And we're trying to do that with every inmate that leaves us now, and that's what's showing us some success.
I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal. Joining me today is Barnstable County Sheriff Jim Cummings. We're discussing his department's recognition by the federal government of the substance abuse treatment at the Barnstable County Correctional Facility. So when they go out into the community, how successful are you with regard to getting these folks the things they need to be successful in society? I know that you just said that's the goal, and how is that working?
It's working very well. I mean, it certainly isn't easy here in the Cape. I mean, housing is an issue, and
sure.
There aren't a lot of jobs, but that's where our friends here in the community come in. I mean, we have employers, and we're talking to some of the folks in the construction trade relative to starting an apprentice program. For lack of a better word, while they're in the correctional facility, give them some education on light construction, just so they have a leg up when they get out in the community. We've done that with a culinary arts program. We have people who leave the correctional facility now, and they have the Safe Serve certificate, and we've even had an opportunity to have some people go through a chef's course, and then when they leave, they continue on at Four Seas with the culinary arts program they have there. Anyone who's under the age of 22 and doesn't have a high school diploma, we're required to provide them with a GED education. And we've given about 450 GEDs since we've been up and born. That's something that's very effective in reducing recidivism when they leave there, and they have the ability to fill out a job application or write up a resume. I mean, it makes a big difference. And again, we have that follow up with 4Cs to continue their education, and those are the things that we're seeing is really working.
Lately here on Cape, well, across the Commonwealth and across the country, there's been a lot of sort of attention given to the heroin problem that's sort of plaguing not only this community but lots of communities. Is that the majority of the problem that you see at the jail? Is opiate addiction or heroin specifically, or?
Yeah, it is, and actually, we think why we're seeing more heroin addiction right now is that for the longest time, pharmaceuticals were a big issue for a while there. 23% of the folks coming into the jail were there because of some issue with pharmaceuticals, prescription drugs. Well, those drugs were coming from Florida. Folks were going to Florida. They have pain clinic on every corner down there, and we're going down there and getting OxyContins and Percocets and Vicodin and all of those opiates. Well, that was finally discovered, and there was a big crackdown. So that availability isn't really there anymore. Another thing that was happening is someone would get on a pharmaceutical, and they'd abuse them. But eventually their prescription would run out, and then their source on the street for getting them illegally would run out. And then the heroin was there, and the heroin is very cheap. So that's how folks ended up getting into heroin, and I think that's where we are today. And unfortunately, with the heroin, some of the stuff that they're now cutting it with, it makes it that much more dangerous. I mean, there's no we used to say when I was with the state police is you never see an old junkie.
Right.
So it's not something. Abstinence is certainly the best thing when you're talking with drugs, and the heroin issue is just as we see in the news every morning now, it's certainly an issue that we should have great concern about.
Yeah, and obviously I'm hearing that sentiment echoed throughout the law enforcement community here on Cape Cod. With in the town of Yarmouth, for example, they've got an exponential increase in ODs, and a lot of it is obviously, as you say, they're cutting it with such dangerous stuff to make it more powerful. So when the prisoners come in and you decide or you offer them the residential substance abuse treatment program, who does the evaluation to determine the level of need of that particular prisoner?
We have specially trained staff that do that. They're correction officers. We have various counselors at the facility that are, that's basically all they do. They know how to evaluate these people, and we can tell a lot from their past history by looking over their criminal record. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a little bit of an art of the folks in there that do it, but they're all very good at it, and it's served us well.
Well, again, congratulations. That's really that's impressive. How many other jails around the country were awarded this particular designation?
There were six.
Six in total. Okay, so wow, that's very impressive. Unfortunately, Sheriff, that's all the time we have this morning. But thanks so much for coming in today. It was a pleasure to have you. Any last words you want to get out about the program?
Well, thanks for having us. I think it's important that the public be aware of these issues, and the police, I know, are doing the best they can to try to keep this stuff off the street. I know there's a lot of towns now that are using Narcan, which can help somebody recover from an overdose, and that's a great thing. But the best thing would be if people just stopped using it. If we can find a way to do that, I think we'll certainly be on our way to a much healthier community. Great.
Thanks so much. That was Barnstable County Jim Cummings. He was my guest today for a discussion of efforts to combat drug addiction at the correctional facility, and also the award by the Justice Department to the jail's residential substance abuse treatment program, which was recognized as a mentoring host site for substance abuse. I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.